Here, this next one here, the free speech and IQ segment of the show. This is something that I had heard on one of my podcasts, and I'm gonna show a video clip. This is toward the end of the video. I fully recommend going and watching this. It's pretty enlightening in terms of different how different groups, racial groups, identity groups, different men, women, and even different generations view the idea of free speech and free speech absolutist type ideologies and stuff like that. I tend to be a free speech absolutionist or absolutist or however you want to call it. But I thought this was pretty interesting. So before you guys jump in, let me play this small bit here from the video.
If you have high intelligence, you are 78% likely to be a free speech absolutist. If you have only above average intelligence, that drops to 56%. If you have average intelligence, declining as a whole in the West, if you have average intelligence, you are only 44% likely to be a free speech absolutist. Below average intelligence, 33%. And if you are of low intelligence, you are only 17% likely to be a free speech absolutist. So look at this descending staircase to hell itself. And this is one of the reasons I talk about intelligence disparities between ethnicities, between genders, and so on.
All right. So what are your thoughts on that one there?
I wonder if it goes the other way as well. I mean, if you're a free speech absolutionist, are you 78% more likely to be high IQ? Or no?
I'm not really sure I understand the question.
Well, what he's saying is if you're smart, you're more likely to be all about free speech.
Right.
If you're all about free speech, are you more likely to be smart? Or can you be dumb as a fucking rock and still be all about free speech?
I mean, you can. I mean, I would say you can. I mean, it's all based on percentages of likelihood here. So, I mean, that obviously leaves...
That's where I was going with it. Is the likelihood the same? That if you're about free speech, are you likely to be smart?
I mean, yeah, I guess that's what the chart's saying. I mean, you can say it whichever way you want because it's correlated. It doesn't necessarily say that it's, causal, but it's certainly got high correlation. And as far as IQ is concerned, there's a huge correlation between not only how you feel about free speech, but it's got a lot of correlation between what political ideology you might be or what level of education you're going to achieve. It's a very, very good predictor for life outcomes and a shit ton of life outcomes for that matter.
Well, it makes sense because you think about the people who aren't about free speech, the ones that, if you say something, you might hurt my feelings. So now I don't want you to be able to talk about whatever. Why? Because I'm not smart enough to defend myself against your thoughts. It's the people who aren't bright enough to stand up for themselves, share their opinion, and make other people understand them. Those are the people who are snowflakes and are afraid of what you're going to say because you might not agree with them. You might hurt their feelings. And they have no recourse other than to whine like a little girl about it. I mean, smart people can tell you, hey, look, you're wrong and this is why.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Absolutely, because if you start interacting with people that don't have good arguments, you tend to see more of a lean toward emotions. They try to pull on your emotional heartstrings. They try to beat you with sophistry and just very floral language that doesn't really make a lot of sense when you really start breaking it down. And they end up kind of coming off looking like
you just shouldn't say anything. You just shouldn't say anything because I have a right to not have my feelings hurt.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but I also have the right to say what the fuck I want to say.
Yeah,
ultimately.
And there's something he alluded to in there that he pointed out that the average IQ level of the Western civilizations right now is dropping. It's getting worse. And as we're bringing in a lot of third world migrants and things like that, yeah, IQ levels do tend to drop because, you're not going to suddenly, you can't turn somebody into a high IQ individual. It's just not possible. I'm sorry. That's just the facts. It's a genetic thing. Almost, I think they said with up to about an 80% likelihood, it is straight up genetics, less environmental. So as that level starts to drop in the United States, in other Western countries like the UK, like Canada, like Australia, you're going to start to see a lot more pushback toward free speech. You're going to see a lot more people trying to press laws that silence people, or you'll see the amount of length that they're willing to allow as far as free speech. Like, okay, you can talk about all these things except for that little bit extra. We don't like that. So you'll start to see that goalpost moving back and back, farther and farther as time goes on. It's pretty when I heard that and I was listening to it, it seems to line up really well with a lot of other research that I've been doing on the subject, and it's not surprising. I hadn't considered it, but hearing it makes me go, "Wow, that's." I don't know. I don't know if you guys feel like that's pretty accurate, or I mean, just based on your experience, what you've seen out interacting with other people, or.
I just don't give a shit anymore, to be honest with you. Everything's categorized. Everything's given a stat, a statistic. I'm going to say what I want to say. If it offends you, just put on your big boy pants and go on about your business and deal with it. If you don't like it, tough shit, That's life. And a lot of these people that are that sensitive to this stuff, what are you going to do when you actually get out there in the real world and somebody, a boss, is going to come at you and tell you, you screwed up? I mean, are you going to cry about it and quit your job because they hurt your feelings?
No, you're going to bring on the fire department. And you're going to start pushing different policies that make it so that,
dude, it's policy after policy and political correctness. I'm over it, man. And I've gotten sick and tired of it. And it's people like me. And I would think most people on this show feel the same way. It's ridiculous. It's stupid. I mean, we have become a society where we have to base everything off of a statistic, because if we don't, then it's not true. It's false. And it's just, I mean, there's going to be some things that are going to be true because they're just a matter of fact, and the way people just get their feelings hurt. I'm sorry. It's just grow some thick skin. Maybe that's just a different time I come from in a place where I grew up. I don't know, but I just don't get it. I really don't. And it aggravates the shit out of me. And, I'm sure I'm probably not the only one.
You remember years ago when we would say sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I mean, there was a lot of truth to that. It makes sense. And that helped me grow as a person. I'm hearing people say offensive things to me all the time. I wasn't like the first class, sports star of my high school. I had to deal with people on a regular level. I had to deal with people making fun of me. I had to deal with, it was just part of life. And and you start learning how to deal with that and take it in and like reflect it back on them. And, in my case, I would just use self-deprecating humor and, because nobody's going to make fun of me better than I'm going to make fun of me. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and if you're doing it and you're proving you're okay with it, they're less likely to be bothered doing it.
Exactly. You know how many fights I've been in? You know how many fights I've been in my entire life? None. Zero. Big goose egg.
Really?
I have a feeling it has a lot to do with my intellect, my ability to get along with people pretty well, my ability to read people, and my ability to use self-deprecating humor to disarm people. You don't want to make fun of the guy that's not bothered by your jibes, your stabs. Wait,
I was bouncing at a nightclub the other day, so I kind of ran up both sides of some guy. It was a bit of a mess. He left bloody. I turned out okay.
Jesus. You seemed really surprised that I'd never been in a fight.
I'm just surprised that I've been in more of them than you have. It's kind of a thing.
I would venture to say you could probably kick my ass. I've talked to you enough. I'm scared of you a little bit.
Yeah, probably smart. Smart people are a little bit afraid of me.
You've got that blind I don't give a shit when you get mad, I bet.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Right on. All right, so if
it almost kind of worries me where we're going to be in the next 10 years with all this too. That's what kind of scares the living shit out of me. Is I mean, if we're this way now, what's going to happen in 5-10 years? And that's just something I've even thought about, even with my daughter being 11. Is she going to become one of these kids that turn into these adults that are just just pansies? I mean, I don't know. So
absolutely not.
It'll be interesting.
Well, your chronologicalism offends me. I think you need to stop, sir.
I'll try.
We're worried about 11-year-old girls, nobody else.
So Anthony, I know for a fact your girl's not going to turn out the way that you're saying you're worried about, because
no, she won't. No.
And I know for a fact my kids aren't going to turn out that way. because I'm very involved in their life. I know how they interact. I know how I'm teaching them how to deal with people and teaching them how to use that self-deprecating humor. And, you know, they'll be fine. They'll know how to deal with the real world. So I don't have any worries whatsoever that our kids are going to turn out that way.
Yeah,
however,
but you got to remember too, the kids they hang out with when they're in school as well. You know, the people they surround themselves with outside of home.
No, I get it, and that's kind of your responsibility to make sure that, you know, at least
whip their ass with the belt. No, I'm just playing.
So to answer your question about if you want to know 5 to 10 years from now what our country is going to look like, I don't think you need to really look any farther than the UK right now as far as how they're handling different, you know, instances of free speech. How, you know, the reason they had that giant rally down there a couple weeks ago. They're trying to silence anybody that has any problem whatsoever to do with the Islamic and Muslim culture. You can look and kind of see how they're operating things right now as a general template for how we may end up being if things keep continuing down this path. If enough of us don't stand up and say, whoa, wait a minute, no.
I think your president is standing up for you guys, though. I mean, you guys have a person in power who I don't really think is a politician or worth shit, but nonetheless, he's there, and it's his job, and he is standing up for the country. He's saying, we're not letting you in if you're not going to assimilate. And if you don't assimilate, he's like, fuck it, get out. He's really standing up for America and for what America is supposed to be about. I think that Canada is going the way of the UK and Sweden. I mean, we're doors open. I mean, our prime minister's out there with his legs open, just inviting everybody in.
Yeah,
and it's freaking awful.
Canada's probably about 5 minutes behind the UK right now, and it's like it's
well,
not.
That's what you guys are still a mile away, and when your neighbor turns into a shithole because of it, your president, whether it's still Trump or somebody else gets in there and whatever, whether it's Pence or it's freaking Trump, in any event, I mean, they're standing up for themselves and they're watching us go downhill in a hurry. I think that from that nearby experience, I mean, they got a shithole under them, about to have a shithole above them. I think the likelihood of them saying, oh, well, let's just do what they did, because that seems smart. I mean, you've got Mexico that can't wipe its own ass underneath. And then Canada, who was okay, and now is suddenly this open door policy to let people come in and rape and pillage our culture, which is kind of what's happening.
Do you think it's possible here in the next maybe 5 years that we'll start to see a lot of issues coming from people in Canada trying to migrate to the United States that as a result of...
No, I don't think it'll go that far, just because as much as we bitch about the way things are going, Trudeau, friggin' pansy boy, he's going to be gone in 2019. So he's out in no time. And even beyond that, we're pretty attached to our political system and to things that you hate, things like our free healthcare, our free dental care, our free child care. Apparently we can get knocked up and somebody else is going to pay and watch our kids. I didn't know that before I decided not to have kids. I really missed the boat there. Like, well, I could have had a whole bunch.
If it were truly free, then maybe I would consider it, but there's no such thing as free.
Well, you know what? It costs somebody else, right? I mean, it doesn't really count if you don't have to pay for it, and that's what we have going here.
Yeah.
People aren't going to leave here because we're giving everybody everything for free, which is where all these immigrants, it's the same thing with the immigrants. They're coming here because everything is free.
Yeah.
You're having more kids, let's move you into a 5-bedroom house and we'll pay for it.
Yeah, they're not migrating of their own accord. They're getting paid to migrate. They're getting, you know, the bait's been set out, and that's what
our government sponsored more than 40,000 families from Syria. The first run of them. They're still sponsoring more, but the first run of immigrants from Syria, they sponsored some 40,000 families. There are still some of those families who are put up in downtown fancy Toronto hotels on the federal dime. And they get a per diem to eat every day. Wow. They will bring in whatever the hell, that halal meat and whatever for them, because that's all that they will eat. And these people are on TV saying, oh, well, if we knew it was going to take this long to get a house, we would have never came. We just want to go back home. And I'm thinking to myself, here's your plane ticket, bitch. Take all your kids with you. Just go.
Now that's kind of the dark side of free right there, though. When you start to, you know, try to through compassion or whatever rationale you try to push it through, when you're trying to give away free stuff to people, more people end up wanting free stuff. You know, it makes people less likely to work for it themselves, and you kind of have this, you know.
Well, I think the problem is that Canada overpromised. I mean, the government, when they sponsored these people, said, "Yeah, sure, we're going to house you." And where does everybody want to go?
Wait! You're talking about a government makes promises they can't keep? No.
Exactly.
No.
But I mean, when they promised housing to these people and we're going to make you citizens, we're going to let you have a job. When they did that, they didn't put into effect the fact that we have a 0% vacancy rate in Toronto, where these people want to live. So there's nowhere to put them. I mean, I've already suggested that I could move into the refrigerator box on the front lawn, and 18 of them can have this tiny 1-bedroom apartment that I live in. Because we're really at a point now where I'm looking for an apartment for 4 months. I haven't seen anything available. There's nowhere to put these people. They're living in hotels because the government can't even find a government housing for them because there is no vacancy.
Jesus. At any rate, I certainly do hope that, you know, people pull their head out of their ass eventually and see where this is going. Not likely going to happen, because that would require somebody to actually have a little intelligence, and as the general trends are going, that's not looking very promising anytime soon.